The American hot dog is marketed as a triumph of freedom, a patriotic cylinder of joy consumed at baseball games by people who pretend they know the rules of baseball. The television commercials will tell you it is a premium product born of backyard barbecues and American ingenuity. The reality is that it is a tube of liquefied animal scraps legally allowed to contain a horrifying percentage of bone fragments wrapped in a carbohydrate sponge to distract you from the texture. It is peasant food. It is what happens when a 19th century butcher looks at a pile of slaughterhouse floor sweepings and says, "I can sell this to a child." But we eat billions of them every summer because a few very ruthless businessmen spent a century convincing us that eating anonymous meat paste is a civic duty. Let us trace the grotesque and highly litigious history of the hot dog and look at every regional style across the United States, which is really just a tour of localized poverty and aggressive condiment hoarding. Before we get to the geographical crimes, we have to look at the baseline tube. Frankfurt claims the Frankfurter, Vienna claims the Wiener. The Germans and Austrians have spent hundreds of years arguing over who first figured out how to cram pork trimmings into a sheep intestine. But the American hot dog story begins in the 1860s with a guy named Charles Feltman. Feltman was a pie vendor on Coney Island. He started selling hot sausages from a pushcart. He gave his customers cotton gloves so they would not burn their hands on the meat. The customers immediately stole the gloves, and who has not had to deal with that problem before? Feltman was losing money on stolen gloves, so purely to save his own wallet, he asked a baker to make long, cheap buns. The bun was not a culinary choice, it was an edible napkin. Feltman built a massive restaurant empire on this concept. He sold millions of them. He felt secure in his wealth. Then he hired a bun slicer named Nathan Handwerker. Nathan sliced buns for Feltman for a few years, took notes on the entire operation, and then quit. He walked down the street, opened his own stand, and sold the exact same product for 5 cents instead of 10. It was a game-changing innovation that everyone claimed they invented, also known as stealing. But Nathan had a problem. At 5 cents, the general public assumed the meat was made of stray dogs and horses, which was a completely fair assumption in 1916. So Nathan executed one of the most successful psychological marketing manipulations in history. He went to a local hospital. He offered free hot dogs to the doctors and nurses, but only if they ate them in front of his stand while wearing their white medical coats. The public walked by, saw people in lab coats eating the cheap meat tubes, and concluded it must be scientifically safe. The trick worked perfectly. Nathan destroyed Feltman's business, built a global monopoly, and claimed the hot dog as his own invention. Oh, hello, Thomas Edison. Once the bun and meat combination was standardized by corporate theft, it infected the rest of the country. And because humans are incapable of leaving cheap things alone, every region invented their own highly specific way to ruin it. In New York City, you have the dirty water dog. Now, it is an all-beef Frankfurter sitting in a warm bath of its own greasy runoff, served from a metal cart by a guy who hates you. The signature topping is a pale, acidic onion sauce. A vendor named Alan Geisler pushed this sauce onto the public because onions were dirt cheap, and the sharp vinegar masked the flavor of a hot dog that had been boiling since Tuesday. New Yorkers eat this and call it culture. It is mostly just digestive conditioning. If you go to Detroit, you find the Coney Island dog. The name is a complete lie. Detroit is nowhere near Coney Island. In the early 1900s, Greek immigrants arrived in Michigan. They wanted to sell hot dogs. They heard the term Coney Island was popular in New York, so they just stole the name for branding purposes. Then they buried the hot dog in a thin, soupy, dialects de beanless beef chili made mostly from beef hearts, added yellow mustard, and piled on raw onions. It is a catastrophic amount of heavy food designed to keep auto workers conscious during a 12-hour shift. Two rival restaurants, American Coney Island and Lafayette Coney Island, opened directly next to each other. They sell the exact same beef heart slurry. They have spent a century locked in a bitter blood feud. That is the American dream. Rhode Island pulled the exact same geographical grift. They serve the New York system wiener, again invented by Greek immigrants who had never been to New York. They just thought the name sounded fancy. They do not even use a real hot dog. It is a terrifying little rope of veal and pork chopped with a dull knife and covered in a meat sauce heavily seasoned with cumin and allspice. The vendors line the buns up on their bare, sweaty forearms to apply the condiments. This violates basically every known health code, but locals defend it aggressively. The Chicago dog is a monument to Great Depression economics. Nobody had any money. A hot dog was a nickel, so Chicagoans realized if they piled an entire salad on top of the cheap meat, they could trick their stomachs into thinking they ate a full meal. They took a poppy seed bun and added mustard, raw onions, tomato slices, a pickle spear, sport peppers, and celery salt, and crucially, neon green, sweet pickle relish. The relish is dyed a radioactive color that does not exist in nature. They did this specifically to make the food look visually exciting to horribly depressed factory workers. The Vienna Beef Company realized this was popular. So they formed a distribution cartel. They supply almost every stand in the city. They claim it is about preserving culinary integrity, but it is just a localized monopoly. Locals will scream at you if you put ketchup on a Chicago dog. They pretend it is a massive culinary faux pas, completely ignoring the fact that they are defending the artistic integrity of a meat paste tube covered in blue dye #1. Wait, that is right. They actually use blue dye to make the relish that green. Not even the company can get their own legend straight without admitting to mild chemical warfare. Down south, the Carolina Slaw Dog proves that structural integrity is a myth. They take a hot dog, add chili, and then drop a massive, heavy scoop of wet coleslaw directly on top. The mayonnaise and vinegar instantly dissolve the cheap bread. You have roughly 40 seconds to consume it before the bun turns into a damp paste and the entire thing collapses into your lap. It is sold as Southern hospitality, but it is really a timed engineering disaster. In the West, we find the Sonoran dog. This originated in Mexico and moved into Arizona. It is a hot dog wrapped entirely in bacon, grilled, shoved into a massive bolillo roll, and smothered in pinto beans, onions, tomatoes, mustard, jalapenos, and an aggressive amount of mayonnaise. It is actually delicious. It is the only regional variation that is not based on hiding bad meat or surviving an economic crash. It just relies on the universal truth that wrapping anything in bacon and mayonnaise will fix it. Then we have the Seattle dog. If the Chicago dog was born of the Great Depression, the Seattle dog was born of 1990s grunge music and excessive alcohol consumption. A guy named Hadley Long was selling vegetarian bagels from a late-night street cart. Drunk people stumbling out of bars demanded meat. He bought some cheap hot dogs. The drunk people then asked him to put his bagel cream cheese onto the hot dogs. He threw on some grilled onions, and the Seattle dog was born. It is a hot dog bisected and spackled with warm cream cheese. It is a textural atrocity. It makes no sense to a sober person. But if you have had 6 cheap beers in the rain at 1 in the morning, it is suddenly a masterpiece. That is the secret to almost all regional food history. Just find a captive audience of exhausted or intoxicated people, throw whatever condiment you have too much of onto a cheap sausage, and let nostalgia do the rest. New Jersey has the Ripper. This is a hot dog tossed into a deep fryer until the casing violently explodes, leaving jagged, hardened edges of fried meat. They named it the Ripper to sound edgy and deliberate. It was absolutely a kitchen accident where someone forgot to take the hot dog out of the oil. They just branded their negligence as a feature. Today, the hot dog market is an illusion. You go to the supermarket and see 30 different brands with rustic packaging and farm imagery, but they are almost all owned by a few massive meat processing conglomerates. They use advanced machinery to mechanically separate meat from the bone, creating a fine pink paste. They pump it full of preservatives, liquid smoke, and corn syrup. Most of them are skinless now. The companies realized they could save a fraction of a cent per unit by peeling off the cellulose casing before packing them, removing the one textual snap the hot dog had left. And if you haven't put it together, I'll do it for you. Whether you are eating a dirty water dog in Manhattan, a neon green salad tube in Chicago, or a cream cheese disaster in Seattle, you are just eating Charles Feltman's stolen glove-saving idea, manufactured by a modern monopoly and hidden under local garbage. Go ahead and confess everything in the comments below. Anyway, please donate or subscribe to fund the next video.